Hey Algebra 2. In this video, I'm going to be reviewing the quadratic formula and the discriminant. You learned this back in Algebra 1. So, quadratic formula is nice because if there are solutions to a quadratic, you can always use the quadratic formula. Although it can be more work. So this is a useful tool to solve for zeros. Especially when a quadratic cannot be factored. So the formula, you proved it back in Algebra 1, or at least you should have. I bet a lot of you would claim you didn't, but you did. The formula comes from completing the square, which you did in Algebra 1, but it's been a while and we're not doing it this year, of the generalized equation in standard form. There's proof of this on page 110 in your book. So, given f of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c, so if you're given a quadratic, if you want to solve it, the first thing you always do is set it equal to 0. So you would say 0 equals ax squared plus bx plus c. And the quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2a. And I emphasize the all because sometimes students don't divide everything. You need this whole thing is being divided by 2a. So if you want to see examples, there's examples on page 110 and 111. I'm not going to go over any because I don't know, they're really just algebra problems. You substitute and then you simplify. So if you want to see examples, look on page, and it has the word for it too, 110 and 111. Okay, there you go. Alright, so let's review the discriminant. So the discriminant is a number that tells us how many real roots so the discriminant is equal to b squared minus 4 times a times c, which you're like, hey, we just wrote that. We did. It's just this part. And so there are three different things that could happen. So if b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0, there are two real solutions. Which should make sense, because if you had a whole number here, you can take the square root of that. So you'd have plus or minus. If b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, so negative, there are two complex solutions. And finally, if b squared minus 4ac equals 0, there's one real solution. So you can do b squared minus 4ac to just figure out, okay, how many solutions are there for my quadratic? Is it going to intersect the graph twice? Is there going to be complex solutions, or is it going to be just intersecting once? So I could give you problems where it's just using the discriminant to determine the number of solutions. So I guess we do one example like that. So if the quadratic was f of x equals 16x squared plus 8x plus 1 equals, oh wait, this is, sorry, I already have an equals. Okay, so all you're going to do is identify your a, your b, and your c. And substitute it into b squared minus 4ac. So it'll be 8 squared minus 4 times 16 times 1. So you need to show the substituting part, and then you simplify, so 8 times 8 is 64. And negative 4 times 16 times 1 is also 64, so it's minus 64, which is 0. So then that means there is one real solution. So f of x is one real solution. Another kind of problem that I could give you, which you did not do in Algebra 1, but probably could have, is instead of just using the discriminant to determine how many zeros there are, you could say what values, or value, we don't know, of b will cause two x squared plus bx plus 18 to have one real solution. So the first thing that needs to happen, and it could be just you doing this in your head, is you going, okay, well, if there's one real solution, that means that b squared minus 4ac has to be equal to 0. So you determine what it is, like, is it equal to 0, greater than 0, less than 0? And then you substitute in your parts. So Here's our A, our B, and our C. So we set up the equation b squared minus 4 times A times C equals 0, and we're just going to solve algebraically for b squared. So then that means b squared and negative 4 times 2 is negative 8 times 18 is negative 144. So we add 44 to both sides, or you could factor, either way. And then we take the square root of both sides. So that means that b is going to either be positive or negative 12. So what this means is, and that's all you would have to do, but what it means is there are two possible equations. So you could have 2x squared plus 12x plus 18, and this will have one real solution, or you could have 2x squared minus 12x plus 18 equals 0. So that's it.